mom looked at me during Christmas dinner and said, "You're the most useless child we have." Everyone stared. I stood up and said something that destroyed her. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. My mother's face went from smug superiority to genuine shock as I looked her directly in the eyes and said, "Then stop calling me when you need money." What Mom didn't know was that she'd just picked a fight with someone who had been systematically documenting every financial transaction between us for 3 years. I'm Linda, 32, Senior Marketing Coordinator at Bennett & Associates, pulling in $78,000 annually with a promotion to department head coming in January. More importantly, I'd been single-handedly keeping this family financially afloat while they treated me like their personal disappointment. The irony was perfect. Here I was announcing my engagement to David, a wonderful high school English teacher, and sharing news of my promotion after 3 years of grinding toward this goal. Instead of celebration, I got the same treatment I'd endured my entire life. Comparison to my siblings and dismissal of my achievements. But this time was different. This time I had leverage they didn't know about, and I was done being their financial safety net while serving as their emotional punching bag. See, what my family never understood was the scope of my actual financial position and professional capabilities. They saw me as the middle child who worked in marketing, which my mother dismissed as making pretty pictures, while my brother Michael was a prestigious doctor and my sister Karen was a successful lawyer. What they didn't realize was that my marketing expertise had taught me strategic thinking, documentation, and leverage assessment. Over the past 3 years, I'd been meticulously tracking every dollar that flowed from my accounts to theirs. Not because I planned this moment, but because my business training had taught me to monitor cash flow and maintain records. Mom's monthly car payments, $2,500 for 24 months. Dad's emergency surgery costs, $3,000 when insurance wouldn't cover everything. Karen's bar exam fees, $2,000 because she'd blown her trust fund on a European vacation. Michael's defaulted student loans, $4,000 that I'd paid off last Christmas. The total was staggering. $43,000 over 3 years, money that should have gone toward my own house down payment, my retirement fund, my wedding savings. Instead, it had subsidized a family that constantly told me I wasn't successful enough. But I had advantages they didn't suspect. My role at Bennett & Associates involved managing client relationships and strategic communications for mid-sized businesses. This meant I worked closely with lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors on a daily basis. I understood contracts, documentation, and most importantly, how to leverage financial dependency for strategic advantage. My direct supervisor, Janet Collins, was a former corporate lawyer who'd transitioned to marketing strategy. She'd been mentoring me for 2 years, teaching me how to analyze power dynamics and identify negotiation leverage points. During our weekly strategy sessions, she'd often say, "Linda, power isn't about what you have. It's about what the other party needs from you and doesn't realize they can lose." Those words had been echoing in my head for months as I watched my family's financial dependency on me increase while their respect for me decreased. The most crucial advantage was my professional network. Through client work, I developed relationships with 3 different law firms, 2 accounting practices, and a financial planning service. These weren't just business contacts. They were people who'd seen my work, respected my analytical capabilities, and would provide strategic advice when needed. 2 months ago, during a client meeting about contract negotiations, attorney Robert Hayes had made an offhand comment that stuck with me. The strongest position in any relationship is being the party that others depend on but take for granted. They never see the withdrawal coming because they assume dependency equals weakness. I'd started preparing for this moment without fully realizing it. My banking app contained detailed records of every transfer, every emergency loan that never got repaid, every monthly payment I'd made to keep my parents' lifestyle stable. My phone contained screenshots of desperate text messages from my mother begging for car payment money, messages where she'd promised, "This is the last time," for the 15th time. I'd also done what my marketing training had taught me: audience analysis. Dad genuinely didn't know about most of the money. Mom had specifically asked me not to tell him about the monthly payments, claiming it would hurt his pride. Michael and Karen had no idea I'd bailed out their financial emergencies. This meant that when the truth came out, it would be shock, not defensiveness, from most of the family. The strategic implications were clear: maximum impact, maximum vindication, minimal ability for them to paint me as the villain. But the real key was timing and presentation. I'd learned from client presentations that information without context is just data. Information with emotional context and clear consequences becomes power. This Christmas dinner, with the whole extended family present, after they'd just humiliated me publicly, was perfect timing. As I sat at that dinner table, listening to Mom's casual cruelty, I realized that every business presentation I'd given, every client negotiation I'd managed, every strategic document I'd created had actually been training for this moment. The moment when I'd finally leverage my position instead of just accepting abuse. The revelation started simply. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, hands surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I'm talking about the $1,500 I've been sending you every month for the past 2 years to cover your car payments because Dad's business was struggling, I said, my voice carrying the same professional tone I used in client meetings. I'm talking about the $3,000 I gave you last spring when Dad needed surgery and your insurance wouldn't cover all the costs. I'm talking about the $2,000 I sent to help pay for Karen's bar exam fees because she'd already spent her trust fund on that trip to Europe. The table had gone dead silent. My Aunt Susan was staring at me with her mouth slightly open. My Uncle Frank had put down his fork entirely. Even my cousins had looked up from their phones. "Want to see the receipts?" I continued, holding up my phone screen. "Because I have them all right here. Every transfer, every check, every emergency loan that somehow never got paid back." My grandmother Eleanor was nodding slowly, pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. My father looked confused and concerned, but my mother's face had gone completely white. "Remember last Christmas when Michael's student loans went into default because his new practice wasn't bringing in enough money yet?" I continued, now fully in presentation mode. "Who do you think paid those off? It wasn't Mom and Dad because they were still recovering from Dad's medical bills. It was me, $4,000 that I'd been saving for a down payment on a house." Michael's face had gone pale. "Linda, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know, because Mom made me promise not to tell anyone. She said it would embarrass you and that I should just consider it my contribution to the family." I turned back to my mother, who was opening and closing her mouth like she was trying to find words that wouldn't come. "You want to know what kind of man proposes to someone like me? The kind who sees that I've been single-handedly keeping this family financially afloat while working my supposedly meaningless job and living in my supposedly pathetic apartment. The kind who recognizes that maybe, just maybe, I've been sacrificing my own financial security and dreams to take care of everyone else." I opened my banking app and started reading actual numbers and dates, treating it like a quarterly financial report presentation. September 15th, 2023, $1,500 to Patricia Johnson for car payment. October 3rd, $1,500 to Patricia Johnson for car payment. November 7th, $2,000 to Robert Johnson for medical expenses. December 19th, $1,500 to Patricia Johnson for car payment. My father was staring at my mother with an expression I'd never seen before. "Patricia, is this true?" The documentation was overwhelming and inarguable. 3 years of systematic financial support, all tracked, all documented, all kept secret at my mother's request. The evidence painted a clear picture. The useless daughter had been the family's financial backbone while being treated like their greatest disappointment. But I wasn't finished. The strategic part was still coming. "Well, congratulations," I said, standing up and pushing my chair back from the table. "You're about to find out exactly how useless I really am, because as of today, the Bank of Linda is permanently closed." The aftermath was immediate and catastrophic for them. Within hours of walking out of that Christmas dinner, I'd made 3 strategic phone calls that would reshape my family's financial reality. First call, my bank, canceling all automatic payments to my parents' accounts. Car payment, insurance supplement, emergency fund access, all gone. The customer service representative confirmed the cancellations would be effective immediately. Second call, Karen's credit card company, where I'd been listed as an authorized payer for her professional wardrobe expenses. Account access revoked. Third call, Michael's student loan servicer, removing myself as the emergency contact and backup payment source. But the real strategic move was what I did next. I called Janet Collins, my mentor and former corporate lawyer, and requested an emergency meeting. We met at her home that evening, where I laid out the entire situation with the same analytical approach we used for client strategy sessions. "You've got a textbook dependency reversal situation," Janet said, reviewing my documentation. "They've been treating the source of their financial stability as their least valuable family member. Classic power dynamic miscalculation." Together, we developed what Janet called a strategic boundaries implementation plan. This wasn't about revenge, it was about establishing professional-level consequences for unprofessional behavior. Janet helped me draft what she termed family relationship restructuring communications. Essentially, business-style emails that laid out new terms for any future financial assistance, clear conditions, specific timelines, and most importantly, behavioral requirements. The key, Janet explained, is that you're not cutting them off permanently. You're establishing that financial support comes with respect and appreciation requirements. It's a negotiation, not an ultimatum. We also prepared what Janet called family relationship impact assessments, detailed analyses of how the financial withdrawal would affect each family member, along with alternative solutions they could pursue. This served 2 purposes. It demonstrated that I'd thought through the consequences professionally, and it provided them with actionable paths forward that didn't depend on my continued support. The strategic communication started flowing within 48 hours. My father called first, his voice heavy with genuine regret. "Linda, honey, I had no idea your mother was asking you for money. I'm so sorry." "Dad, it's not just about the money. It's about the way she's treated me my entire life. The money was just the final straw." "I know, sweetheart. I've been thinking a lot about that since you left. I should have stood up for you more over the years." This was the response I'd strategically anticipated. Dad's reaction would be shock and apology, because he genuinely hadn't known about most of the financial arrangements. His support would be crucial for the longer-term family restructuring. Michael called the next day with a response that surprised me with its self-awareness. "Linda, I feel terrible about the loan situation. I want to pay you back." "It's not about paying me back, Michael. It's about the fact that for all these years, you've been perfectly happy to assume someone else would handle family problems while you focused on your career." "You're right," he said quietly. I guess I always saw you as the strong one, the one who had everything figured out. I was the one who couldn't say no. There's a difference." Karen took 3 days to call, and when she did, she was defensive. "I don't understand why you're being so dramatic about this, Linda. Families help each other out." "Karen, do you remember what you said to me at dinner? You said I was the difficult one in the family. Do you have any idea how that felt coming right after Mom called me useless? I was just joking around." "It wasn't a joke to me. It never is." But the most persistent contact came from my mother. She called 6 times on December 26th alone, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails that showed the full impact of her new financial reality. Linda, this is ridiculous. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults. Linda, you're being incredibly selfish. Your father is upset, and this is affecting the whole family. Linda, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude needs to stop. We're your family. The progression of her messages was textbook negotiation psychology. First anger, then blame, then attempted guilt manipulation. Janet had predicted this exact sequence during our strategy session. On December 28th, Mom tried a different approach. Linda, honey, I think I may have spoken too harshly at dinner. Maybe we can work something out about the money situation. But it wasn't until December 30th that she finally made the call I'd been strategically waiting for. Linda, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I almost didn't answer. I'd been screening her calls for days, following Janet's advice to let the strategic pressure build before engaging in resolution discussions. Hello, Mom. Linda, thank God. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. I'm listening. Your father and I have been talking, and I think I owe you an apology, a real one. I waited, applying the same strategic silence I'd learned in client negotiations. What I said at dinner was unforgivable. You're not useless. You're the opposite of useless. God, Linda, you've been holding this family together, and I've been treating you terribly. It was the closest thing to a genuine apology I'd ever received from her. But I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. This was still a negotiation. Mom, it's not just what you said at dinner. It's been a pattern my entire life. The constant criticism, the comparisons to Michael and Karen, the way you dismiss my career and my accomplishments. I know, she said, and her voice was shaking. I know, and I don't have a good excuse for it. The conversation that followed was the first real strategic negotiation I'd ever had with my mother. I laid out specific behavioral requirements for any future financial assistance. Public acknowledgement of my contributions, equal treatment and respect compared to my siblings, and an end to the constant criticism and comparisons. More importantly, I established what Janet called relationship terms and conditions. Future family gatherings would require basic respect. Financial assistance would be transparent to all family members, not secret arrangements that protected others' egos. And most crucially, any criticism or belittling behavior would result in immediate withdrawal from the situation and a cooling off period before re-engagement. The money stops, Mom, all of it. No more car payments, no more emergency loans, no more bailing anyone out. I understand. You're right to stop. We never should have put that burden on you. And the criticism stops too. I'm not going to tolerate being belittled anymore, especially in front of other people. Okay, I'll try to do better. Don't try, Mom. Do better. Because if you can't, then David and I will build our life without this family's involvement. It was an ultimatum, but it was professionally crafted and reasonably stated. For the first time in my life, I was setting real boundaries with consequences I was prepared to enforce. The strategic implementation had worked exactly as Janet and I had planned. By documenting everything, timing the revelation for maximum impact, and following up with professional-level boundary setting, I'd completely reversed the family power dynamic. 3 months later, the results were unmistakable. My parents had been forced to seek financial counseling, and Dad had taken a part-time consulting job. Michael had started a monthly call schedule to check on me personally, not just family logistics. Karen remained somewhat distant, but she'd stopped the casual criticisms and put-downs. Most importantly, I'd saved $1,500 every month that had been going to my mother's car payment. David and I used that money to accelerate our house, down payment savings, and increase our wedding budget. The useless daughter was now building wealth instead of subsidizing others' poor financial decisions. My career flourished without the constant drain of family financial emergencies. The promotion to department head came through in January with an $18,000 salary increase. My boss specifically noted my increased focus and strategic thinking in recent months. The wedding planning became a test of the new family dynamic. Instead of criticism and attempts to control the process, my mother mostly kept her opinions to herself. When she did offer suggestions, she prefaced them with phrases like, "just an idea," or "only if you think it would work." My father, meanwhile, threw himself into wedding planning with enthusiasm that surprised me. He offered to help with costs, insisted on walking me down the aisle, and spent hours researching vendors. It was as if he was trying to make up for years of standing by while my mother criticized me. The most significant change was internal. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't constantly seeking approval or trying to prove my worth. I knew who I was, what I'd accomplished, and what I brought to my relationships. 6 months after that Christmas dinner, David and I were married in a beautiful ceremony that we paid for ourselves, using the money I'd saved by stopping the family subsidies. During his speech, my father publicly acknowledged the years of imbalance. Linda has always been the heart of our family, even when we didn't appreciate her properly. Even my mother managed appropriate remarks. "Linda, I'm sorry it took me so long to see what an amazing daughter I have." But the most meaningful moment came during our first dance, when I realized I felt something I'd never experienced at a family gathering: complete, genuine happiness. No anxiety about criticism, no stress about managing others' emotions, just pure contentment surrounded by people who truly valued me. The strategic approach had delivered everything I'd hoped for: financial independence, professional advancement, family respect, and most importantly, self-respect. I'd learned that sometimes the most professional thing you can do is treat family relationships with the same standards you'd apply to business partnerships. The little girl who had spent her childhood trying to earn love had grown into a woman who knew she was worthy of love just as she was. And that strategic transformation made all the difference in building the life I actually wanted, rather than the life others expected me to accept.